Hey, welcome back to the Life Changes Channel podcast. I'm your host, Dina Court, and I am excited to announce two new events that are coming up in November. We have a men's health panel and a women's health panel, just jam packed with experts and professionals that are going to be in these virtual online events where you can meet them. You can talk to them, you can ask them questions and get answers to help you through wherever you're feeling stuck. You can trust this information. We have credible people who want to help you so you don't feel alone. And it's often hard to know where to turn for information. Now, you might be asking, what kind of health are we talking about? We are talking about mental health, physical health, social, spiritual, financial, relational, and even sexual health. So we have experts that are going to be there that you can ask questions around any of these topics and find out how to navigate whatever change you're going through, whether it's to do with parenting, your finances, with education, with a job, with grief, with loss, divorce, separation. How do you get past wherever you're feeling stuck? Or if there's somebody you care about who you know might find this really informative and supportive, then please share this with them. All the links are in the show notes. You can register for the event by going to those links on Eventbrite or to our event page. And we are so grateful to our very generous sponsors who are sponsoring these events. The men's panel is being sponsored by Dr. Wes Thiessen and Dwight Heck, and the women's health panel is being sponsored by Connie Kabilko, Laura Thomas, Madge Osman, and Ramona Kosowan. These generous people are making it possible for you to be able to come at a much less cost than what an event like this usually would cost. And we are really looking forward to meeting you, to hearing your questions, to helping support you. So please join us. It's online, it's virtual. On November the 4th is the men's health panel, and November the 13th is the women's health panel. Both of them are going to start at noon Mountain, and we will be there for about 2 hours, however long you've got questions for us. So thank you so much for your interest in taking better care of yourself and your family. Or you know someone you would like to share this with, please let them know you care. Let them know that we have this opportunity to find support, find answers, and you don't have to give up. You are not alone. We look forward to meeting you.
Well, hello, shifters. What's going on?
Well, here we are. And I have to tell you, we have had pet peeve shows in the past. And I have to start with a little pet peeve because I think we're going to be digging into some pretty big stuff that's going on right now. So if anybody else is dealing with these ridiculous maple bugs / Halloween bugs, like whatever that are out, and I've just feel like they are so disgusting. But what's even worse is having one you thought had died limping and dragging itself across the room when you're in the middle of something, and you can't, like, here I am, I'm tied to a mic and I've got some mangled poor bug that I like.
I mean, if you need to run and take care of that, go ahead.
No, it happened earlier today. I was like,
okay.
oh, I wonder if anybody else has these nasty critters in their house. I leave them alone when they're outside because that's where they live, but I live in here, so
It's like, get out of my space, man. Like,
yeah.
bug off.
And I actually was in a call today, and just as I hung up the call, one is walking across my desk right under my nose, and I'm just like,
Aw,
F off. And this is a clean show, so I kept it clean there.
bug off. Oh, Dina is frozen. Here we go. Dina's back.
I'm not sure what happened.
I don't know if it's you or if it's me. It's not you, it's me. No.
Yeah.
No idea.
Did we lose our guests too?
No, they're here.
Yeah,
They're here.
we'll
They're
have to
hanging
find
out.
them.
I just
Okay,
refreshed because I was like, I don't know. You were talking about the bugs, and I was like, well, guess what? We have another bug just bugging us. Oh my goodness. Dina's frozen again. Oh, this might be an interesting show. Okay, we'll see if we can get Dina back. Otherwise, I might bring in guests and we'll see what happens. So bear with us. Anyway, I hope everyone's been doing good, other than all the shiftiness that's been going on. So today we decided that we're going to talk about education shifts, and we'll see if Dean has been educated enough to come back. No, it's not working. So we thought we would do some educational shifts, because right now, as you know, most of you know that here, especially in Calgary, we're doing a teacher strike. So we thought it'd be kind of interesting to be able to have guests on to talk about education shifts. How do we deal with the education shifts that we're going through right now with the strike? Dina, welcome back.
I just keep getting bounced.
Right? I don't know what's going on. We'll see what happens. So we'll try and get into it. But yeah, I was just saying how here in Calgary we're doing the teachers strike right now. I don't know where else is the teacher strike. Is it just Alberta?
All the public schools
in Alberta.
Yeah.
Fun stuff.
So I think it's like, I heard something like 50-some thousand teachers. Does that make sense? A lot of people, and
makes sense.
A lot of families, a lot of students.
Yeah. Yeah. So we thought, what a better way, because a lot of parents have to shift through this whole situation of the strike. So what do? Right? You're used to your kids going to school every single day, and then all of a sudden, like, hey, they're home. So we deal with this in the summertime when your kids are home from school in the summer, but summer's coming. Okay, from June-ish or end of June, maybe even beginning of July to September, you have those couple months where it's like, okay, you need to plan where your children are going to be at, what's going on. Are you able to take a couple months off from work to be able to spend with them? A lot of people bank their hours and they take maybe a month off, and that's pretty much what they can do. So Dina's frozen again. I don't know what's going on. Oh, there's Dina.
Well, first I see you freeze, then I go black. Now
I don't see me freezing at all. So
good. Okay, it's on my end then.
Right. I don't know, but we'll get our guest here in a moment.
It's all the bugs.
It's the bugs. They're bugging us.
Yes.
Right. We want to. I did see a couple here. I was going to say I had one on like my living room curtain last night. And like we thought, oh, it's a fly. And then looking closer, it was one of those guys. And I was like, just
creepy crawlies.
Yeah. And then we went to like get it, and it just scooted underneath like where my patio door is. And I was like, oh, bugger.
So if you're looking for ways to entertain your kids that are stuck at home.
Perfect solution. We can teach them how to be exterminators.
Or to rehome. Rehome outside. Okay, so let's dig into this. I have to say I had a challenge to, somebody came to mind right away. Anna, she's a frequent flyer here. We love her. She's our bestie. And she has, as of in the spring, and she can tell us more about that, has started homeschooling one of her kids. So she's a little more ahead and prepared than some of the other families when her other three are now home full time. So she came to mind right away. Let's bring her on. Let's talk about how her family has shifted and how they've had some change in perspective.
Yes.
And then trying to find a teacher. And this is very interesting because the teachers graciously declined out of fear for jeopardizing their job.
Yeah, understandable.
And that's unfortunate because they are fighting for their jobs right now, and then they're also feeling muted to protect themselves. So Anna actually had a fantastic suggestion, and she mentioned Elizabeth Bennett being somebody that would be a really good resource. And Elizabeth can tell us more about why we've invited her and why she's a really good fit.
Okay, shall we bring her in too?
Bring her in.
Bring her in. Hi, kids.
Oh, hello, everybody. Thanks, Anna, for thinking about me.
Yeah, you came to mind because I mean, some of those harder conversations way back in the spring that I was having to have when making the choice to take my daughter out of school. And of course, you came to mind. You have those courageous conversations, and it was one of the things that I remembered from your talks. And so thank you for joining us.
Welcome. Yeah. If you guys want to, Elizabeth, maybe you want to introduce yourself a little bit. Anna's been, of course, a guest on she's our favorite guest. As Gina says, our frequent
I'm
flyer.
all the opinions, apparently.
It's all the opinions. Well, I mean, it's always good to have another person as a backup to be able to come on and discuss things, because it's nice to have a third party be able to come on. So, I mean, if you guys are watching and you want to be a guest, let us know. Like, please reach out. We don't mind Anna at all, but it's great to have her. So, Elizabeth, please introduce yourself, and then we'll get more into our topic here.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me, and for, it's great to be here. And I'd like to be, a regular kind of guest too. That would be fun, because I certainly have a lot of things to talk about. But let's start on today's topic. I'm a retired school principal, and I have over 35 years in the field of education as a teacher and a coach and a mentor, and certainly through the levels of administration to principling. And I continued to teach even when I was a school principal, because I wanted to stay engaged with the kids and find out what was going on, really, because they're not likely to share all of that for all of you who might be parents. And you have the luxury to be able to have a little extra open ear to hear things that are going on. And oftentimes they don't want to share it with their families because they don't know how. And that's part of what I talk about.
I love that. Tell us more about the conversations that you encourage and educate people around, Elizabeth.
Well, I mean, so it depends on who my audience is. So as an example, I mean, I had conversation with Anna quite some time ago when she was, going through making the decision to move her daughter into a different school, or in this case, in homeschooling. So when I speak with parents, I really talk to them about what I know about what's going on with their kids. So as an example, kids carry two backpacks. They carry the one you see with the books hanging out and the papers everywhere and the stinky gym clothes and the science experiment that used to be a lunch at some time. And probably right at the bottom of that bag, there's a crumpled up field trip form that they got about 6 weeks ago. And, oh, Mom, by the way, the field trip's today. Could you sign it? Yep. So, you're pulling it apart and you're trying to, rub it out and be able to write on it.
Iron it out.
But then there's the backpack that they carry. And that's the one filled with anxiety and fear. And, are they doing the best they can for you as a parent, because they hear you say, how's your marks and what are you doing and when's your next test and are you studying and go do your homework and all that stuff, plus everything else that's going on in their life and in yours. So oftentimes, parents will say, oh, well, my kid doesn't talk to me. Well, that's part of what I do to help them reconnect. But the thing about it is they don't know how to approach some of that, because they've got that emotional thing going on where their hormones are raging. And because, my favorite group are teenagers. Oh, and by the way, just for all of you to know, teenage years now start at 8. Yeah. 13 is, that's passé. It's
middle age, teenage.
Yeah. So with all of that, I mean, those are the things that I talk about with parents to help them understand, because, that the raging hormones and the ballistic behavior and the stuff that parents pull their hair out about, that's all the stuff that makes me come alive, because their behavior is a form of communication. Yeah. And it might not be the kind of communication you like. So, when they walk in the door and they throw their backpack against the wall and they stomp into their room, and you're getting heightened in your reaction. And that's often what we do, is we react to things. And so I help parents understand that, well, find out what's going on. So you can do one of two things. You can yell at them, what the hell did you do throwing your backpack against the wall? Or you can say, tell me about what happened today that made you have to do that. Mm-hmm. you're still inquiring, but the tone of it and the approach to it is very much welcoming, because that's what I want for people. Is I want parents to be able to invite their kids into conversation, and not that, what we all know to be true, because we've all lived it. We've all pushed the limits. We all had those times where, we're just going to not do what our parents say or whatever. And, depending on when you were born, I've been around for a couple of moments now, and where children should be seen and not heard. If money doesn't grow on trees, and don't cry or I'll give you something to cry about. Boys don't cry and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And now we've swung that pendulum way in the other direction, where kids know far too much about what's going on in their lives, in their families, because some of it needs to be the adult conversation without having the children there. But they're always listening, and they're always watching. And, again, those are things that I say to parents about how are you showing up in your own home.
And now
we're impact on
now we're pulled in again, not quite the pandemic level of all under the same roof, but we're having to shift and negotiate a whole different daily schedule and different energy levels. And now we don't have the same structures in place with our time.
Mm-hmm.
Anna, what have you seen happening in your home?
Well, like Elizabeth said, we did see a lot of that irrational behavior, where it was just the storming off, the rolling of eyes, the excessive get out of my space, the swearing, the stuff like that. So I truly am with Elizabeth when I say I truly believe that Sophia was telling us something, and we just weren't able to hear that in what she was saying. And so in her situation, we did take her out of school. I do feel like she's a bit of a square peg in a round hole. It just, the system isn't set up for her to be successful in what she needs. And she wasn't able to communicate that. And so her form of communication was, get me the hell out of here. And she would do whatever it took to get out of the classroom. And so, we pulled her, she made the choice ultimately, but we followed through with empowering her to seek some other services and pull that into our home. And so we really focused on Sophia being safe. And so just really keeping her emotionally and physically safe. And then once we got her situated, of course, then the strike hit, and her routines are now out of whack, and she's having to share the space with 3 other humans, and because the other kids are home, and she already had her routine. And so transitions and stuff are really difficult for her. And so now 3 weeks in, we're starting to see a little bit of a relaxation again with her behavior. But we did see an increase because of the change in routine. So, but once we got Sophia situated, it actually calmed a lot of our family. So just because we were always on edge of like, what's going to happen next? What's going to drop, right? And so really just taking a step back and trying to understand that. But also, I must say, in my whole experience of this whole traumatic experience of going to homeschool, which I love spending time with her. But I am by no means a teacher by any stretch of the imagination, in the fact that I did not go to school to be a teacher. So do not take this as any sort of governance or anything.
Advice.
So, yes, there is a caveat there. I'm doing the best. I'm doing the best I can with that. But it's been difficult for all of us. But she is doing much, much better. So we've seen a huge change in her behavior, in the overall what we used to call chaos in our home. I mean, we still all have chaos in our homes, I'm sure, but this is just a different level. And so it's been difficult, but it's also been nice to kind of reconnect with her on a different level and really try to understand her. So
as far as education, go ahead.
Oh, it was just like, and that's like, I think where I tie back to Elizabeth was that was kind of the conversation that we had, was that really understanding, and I've heard her talk multiple times on many stages, very, very fantastic speaker, by the way. I just really appreciate where she comes from with that curiosity. But for me, it was also looking at what is happening for me, because some of those triggers that she was having, I was also having from my childhood. So I didn't know that all of that was being packed in my own backpack, and I was unloading, and then it was triggering her, and we were in this cycle of constantly triggering each other. And so it's been a huge learning curve for both of us, and really just focusing on creating a safe zone for all of us. And it's been remarkably different since 6 months ago. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's a major
we
shift.
hear how if the big people aren't okay, the little people aren't okay, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think you've really said, like both of you have mentioned, how that communication and then the curiosity, you know, why the behavior, not just react to their behavior, but why, and dig a little deeper and ask what's going on. And I mean, they don't have school now that they're coming home from, but maybe they're at some other activity, they're doing something else, or you're just all kind of stuck together trying to figure out life.
Right. Yeah. I want to say it's also important, I think, as well, to, even before you're putting your children into school, whether it be homeschool or it's out in public school or private school, whatever whatever you decide as parents, I would say look at the child's learning skills. Like, how are they learning? Are they hands-on? Are they visual? Do they like group settings? Are they a one-on-one type of a learner as well? So that's also something very much to consider, because Anna, maybe for you, Sophia doesn't like a group setting. Maybe she's not learning. Maybe she's not getting the one-on-one that she needs to be able to be heard, to be able to learn. So I think that's also very important to learn those. Like, how is your child learning? So that you understand them just that little bit more. Elizabeth,
and that's part of what I encourage parents to have those conversations with teachers early in the school year, to say, these are the kinds of things that work well with my child, or so on. Now, granted, we're always trying to expand and extend on people's comfort zone too, for kids to be able to work in a group or those kinds of dynamics. But it really is, it's critical for parents at the beginning of the year to have a conversation with their child's teacher, or in Anna's case, she has several children. So to go to those teachers and say, or this is the goals that we've had conversation with at home. So, I don't know whether Anna has 3 girls or not, but let's
I do. Yep.
Oh, okay, great. So, each of them are going to have their gifts and talents. Each of them are going to have things that scare them or challenge them, or, she might have one that's, really an extrovert and wants to be in the middle of everything. And then one like Sophia, because I've met Sophia, who's quiet and just wants to, she'll manage, she'll do things. And she's a powerhouse too, because she actually spoke at an event we were at just recently, in front of a whole bunch of adults, and most kids can't do that, right? So for her to be able to step out, it was quiet at first, but then you could see her build the confidence in the conversation that she was sharing with us, because she felt really good about what she wanted to talk about. And those are the kinds of things that we try at school to be able to get kids to do, to see that their own gifts and talents and so on. But it's helpful for parents to be able to have those conversations early in the year and say, these are the goals that my child and I have talked about. This is typically the kind of student that they are, in terms of, whether they're visual or auditory or whatever, or these are special needs that my child has. And these are things that we do at home, because teachers are looking for those things too, because they're not magicians. We're trying to, and I talk about the collective we, because I think I'll always be a teacher. Those are the things that teachers need help with, because it's not families against school or school against families. We're trying our best to make that a connection as well, and a relationship, so that we can help support each other.
I think you touched on an important thing too, Anna, about safety. That's
Mhm.
very basic needs. So that communication and with the school too is helping them so they feel safe in those spaces. What makes them feel safe? Because they're not going to learn if they're in survival or fight, flight, or freeze mode.
Yeah, and actually, I mean, I give it to those teachers and educators in the school system, because they are bombarded with so many needs and so many unmet needs of their own within their classroom. Like, there's been instances where my daughter came home and she said in their junior high class, there isn't actually enough chairs in the room. And so a teacher had to go out and buy more chairs, so there was enough to for everyone to sit. And so, or there's situations where there's kids that maybe need a little bit more attention and there's not an aide there to help with that. So the teacher is being pulled in different ways, right? So kids are feeling that lack of safety. There's an increase in bullying within, online, but not only that, it's coming into the classrooms and that sort of stuff. So there's a lot of different aspects of safety that we need to look at as parents. And be active in our kids' lives, and not as a helicopter parent, because we want to advocate for them, but we also want them to have a voice. And so when Elizabeth actually mentioned that Sophia was coming to some business meetings with us, is I actually have prepped her for that, and I've seen her flourish, and she has some markets coming up that she's preparing for, and she's just coming into her own when she's been given that space to be who she is, and not fit the mold type thing, right? It's not cut for everyone. And so I'm happy that here in Alberta we do have different options for kids and for parents, right? Unfortunately, we're in a strike situation right now where not everybody has that option to be staying at home with their kids. So I fear about those kids that are at home by themselves all day, because who knows if they're even eating, because that's what teachers deal with too. Kids coming to school without food. And all of these issues are coming to the forefront in the last, years, I guess, because it's been compiling. But there's lots on the plate right now as a parent and as an educator. And I think it's really difficult to bridge that, especially when teachers are so stressed, right? Like, not every teacher has the ability to meet with every student's parents or on a regular basis if they have more needs. So you've kind of got to teach your own children and your students to have that voice, and sometimes it's not always there, and that's where the system is failing, right? There's kids being passed through where there's no supports for them. So
yeah, I know there's been more recent some schools that will do like a breakfast program, or they'll do like a lunchroom program, things like that. So I think the word is getting out there a little bit more now. But again, it's also boils down to, are you having those conversations with your child where, sometimes they may be getting lunches, but the kids don't even like the lunch and they're refusing to even eat them. And then some teachers think, oh, this child is starving because they have no food, but they're really hiding their food in their backpack going, I just don't like this and whatever. So it's that conversation with the child of like, okay, maybe we should be packing your lunch together. What are some things? Let's go shopping together. Let's do these things. And then maybe while you're shopping out there, you can have a gentle conversation with them and go, hey, is anyone in the class that you and maybe want to buy something for them or whatever? Because sometimes it's a humility thing where some families that can't afford the food, they're not packing things, but they don't want it to be out in the open. Right. So Elizabeth, what have you found in these situations? What do we do?
Well, that's interesting that you asked that question, because once a week I make sandwiches at Brown Bag Calgary. And it started off many, many years ago, where it was maybe 1,200 or 2,400 sandwiches that they were making, and in a variety of locations around the city. And then they would have drivers and take those buckets to schools and so on. We're now up at 7,800 sandwiches a day. And that's sandwiches, and then they get a little bag of some sort of fruit, usually apples, and they're already cut up, and some carrots and so on. so those are the things, because so many people who are here, and I'm generalizing really, because I'm just looking at Calgary at the moment, and then the school district that I worked with. Families are coming from places and spaces in the world where they're coming with the shirts on their back. I mean, you've seen the news, so you know that they're coming here, right? Or there are families who they've lived in a refugee camp, so they haven't had for any type of formal education. And those parents are coming here for the betterment of their children, because that's what they tell us. I want better for my child. And now they're working 2 or 3 jobs. And so they're doing their best in mostly, unfortunately, minimum wage locations where that's what they have to do. And so they miss out on those opportunities, either to have conversation or to be able to feed them, because there's not enough coming in.
It blows my mind to think of the need. And I mean, there's more need, because we can assume there's more need than we're even able to address. But, when you mentioned about helping other families and teaching that as a family value, and I know, like Anna, I admire how your family is looking for opportunities to support people in that way. And one of my neighbors mentioned that when they raised their children, they would always, every single day, they would pack their lunch with extra. And those kids always knew, and to this, now they're adults, they still live their life this way. They knew that there was always extra in their lunch to share. And they are now hearing from the occasional person who had benefited from that and say, thank you. That was my only meal that day, was what your kids shared with me.
That's awesome. And that's part of what happened with our school district several years ago when we got on the wellness kick, for school wellness and so on. And there was, then we were also informed through conversation that when parents were coming to the school to celebrate their child's birthday, that if they would refrain from bringing sweet treats. Because, parents would bring cakes, and they'd bring cupcakes, and they'd bring like all kinds of stuff. Yeah. Because what we recognized was that was some days that was the only thing that a child was having. So it was a cupcake or, some real big sweet treat, depending on, who the family was and what they were bringing in and what they could afford to, share with 30 other children in the class. Yeah. So that was something that we became way more aware of as well. So along with, the opportunity to receive sandwiches at lunch and so on, then there were other things that we created within our schools, like you mentioned before, Cari, about Breakfast Club, right? Yeah. In some of the schools that I was in, we created that. So, and, asked for sponsorship and so on, so that we could provide an opportunity for kids to, be clothed, be fed, be safe, and do everything that's possible while we have them in our care. And I think that's part of, the whole political landscape that we are now in Alberta, and not recognizing that those are the things that happen in schools.
Mm-hmm. Well, when those basic needs are met, so now if we can meet a few of those, the safeties, maybe some food, then we're talking about the learning. So around education, I would be interested to know, and I want to get into hearing more about homeschool and what options and things that you're just almost on a weekly basis. I hear something else new that you've discovered for a way for Sophia to learn, engage with others, socialize, and I'm seeing you blossom through that too. So I want to get into the homeschooling, but let's talk about that school environment, Elizabeth, and what is it actually like for a teacher on a day-to-day basis right now, with class size and dealing with, there's also, and I'm going to plug this in many conversations every time I have an opportunity, but there's an epidemic of domestic violence. Mm-hmm. And that means there's an epidemic of kids also being in those environments. So that's part of that safety, part of that basics. And the teachers are maybe the safest place. And kids are often dysregulated and feel they can be dysregulated where they feel safe. And maybe that's at school.
you hit the nail on the head there, Gina.
Mm-hmm.
I think for kids like Sophia, she had the opportunity to do that at home, because part of what happens is, kids are holding on to all of this stuff and they're trying their best. And when those, big fireworks, as an example, I'll keep it calm and safe and regular language. When those fireworks explode in a classroom, that's the end. Yeah, that's the end piece, right? They're finally letting it all go. Well, when you have someone who's 8 trying to hold it all together, so they've got stuff going on at home, and this is why I've also chosen now to start going into workplaces and having those similar conversations, because I think people in workplaces don't think that it's connected to their home, because now they feel the same kinds of things that happen in school. They don't feel heard. They don't feel valued. They don't feel that they have a place. Bullying is rampant. Mental health concerns are through the roof. Social isolation is on the increase. And I thought for a period of time that was only our environment. Well, that same environment exists in all places and spaces. And if you've been following along on LinkedIn lately, and I've seen some of Anna's pieces, there's more and more talk about workplace violence and toxic environments, and people in that, what do they call that term? Quiet quitting.
Mm-hmm.
Or I learned a term this year called presentism, because people are just at work. That's it. That's all they're doing. They're not doing anything. They just happen to be existing in that. But when I speak with people in workplaces, I'm trying to get them to understand too that if you create a positive culture in your workplace, if you learn and understand how to manage conversations, and whether they're a conflict or whether you feel, I don't ever want, I don't like confrontation. It's not about confrontation. It's about conversation. But that's a whole other. We can have this conversation some other time, and I'll talk about that. But
we'll confront the conversation when we get to that.
Okay. But what ends up happening is those people that feel angry and upset and so on at work, they have one of two things happen. When they come home, they have a family like any of yours who are excited to see them, and and that's great, and so they go back to work in order to play with their family. But then the other side of that is that people leave their work, they're angry and frustrated and upset and so on. So when they come home, then that's the blowout they have on their family, which increases domestic violence, the possibility of alcoholism, drug abuse, you name it, it's there. And I came from that, so I know it to be true. So when kids are in that, they're trying to manage that too, plus all the things that are going on in their little lives. And I'm looking at someone who's about 8, because that's kind of when you're really aware of things, right? And you can have adult conversations, and you can still play with whatever's going on with your friends. But the piece about that, though, is that backpack that you don't see is the one that continually increases. Now they're holding on to all of that shift stuff that you talk about, right? And they're trying to manage that at home, and they're trying to manage themselves. And depending on whether they're the ones that are abused, or the view of it because their parent might be, or there's sexual abuse or anything else that's happened, then they're carrying that, as well as the pressures of school, and have you done your homework, or put your books away, or sit quietly, or so on. And we're not meant to sit still on a chair for 8 hours. We're just not. None of us
Well,
do that very well,
I think
right?
yeah, and I think you hit it a nail on the head there too, Elizabeth, because now we get into big feeling kids. So like my Sophia or my Miles, who are like supreme empathetic, right? They're feeling those energies that other
Mhm.
people are putting out too, and
Yep.
then that makes them even more unsafe or uncomfortable with themselves or in the space that they're in, right? So they're hyper aware of those things, and so when all of that starts to compile, it just becomes too much. And I think we're in a situation right now in the classroom, and I can speak from my experience within a classroom, as in that I was an aide and worked social work, and so I have a little bit in the different fields of things. But there's a lot going on at any given time. It's not one thing. It's not the teacher standing up there beautifully and giving a lecture, and it's chaos. Like it's everything is happening. Someone, like, we're integrating kids into classrooms that are different abilities or nonverbal or have a different language, and it's really hard to communicate, and it's hard to be in those spaces sometimes. My son Miles, who's in grade 5, has a student in his class that's still in diapers, and I'm not saying that that's a wrong thing, but he says she sits and screams and doesn't have anybody changing her diaper on a regular basis, and so it's uncomfortable for all of the people in the room, right? And so it's an under it's such it's such a difficult situation to be in for anyone at this point. We're overcrowded, we're underfunded, all of the things, and everybody feels it, from student to educator to all of the things. And so I think understanding and going in, like I said before, with curiosity and some humanness to it, right? We're all in this together. We've got to make the best of it, and we've got to understand what's going on. And so having those conversations, like Elizabeth said, like, for myself and through this whole situation with Sophia, it was about also unpacking my own backpack, because I didn't realize how lonely I had felt for so long. And that was a big piece too. There's no domestic violence in our house or anything like that, but it's those other things that eat at you too, right? I own a cleaning company. I often hear from people saying that they can't keep up. There's just too much on their plate. They're going all the time. There's these expectations that we carry that have no reason, right? Like, we just keep going and expecting things to keep going. And at some point we've got to stop and reevaluate. And that happened for me and my family. And I am so grateful that Sophie had the voice to be able to do that. Maybe not in the most
Eloquent.
eloquent way. Yeah, like it wasn't great, but
Yeah,
I'm super
way.
grateful for the change that she gave our family, because it was exactly what we needed, and it was what she needed. But there's so many things going on in classrooms, and I've seen them. We as a family have decided that we would give our school food for other people, because we have a little bit extra, and so we make sure there's granola bars, and we give juice boxes and things for other kids, because we do have that ability to do that. That was one of the things that came from a long time standing conversation from my grandma. She was like, no one should ever go hungry, right? Where there's always food. And so I want to make sure that other people are taken care of around my kids and in our community, because it all is impacting my own kids and my family and the people around us. So, choosing those avenues to sink into where you can make a bigger impact is really important too. It's not just about one kid in a classroom. It's about the collective. And when we think about every kind of aspect or every angle we can, it makes the world a much better place. And those classrooms really need that extra love right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, and I think part of it too is that, based on the government's perspective at this moment, they're not really giving respect to the profession, which is really unfortunate, because everyone has had a teacher.
Yep.
You get to where you are today because of a teacher. Like, even if you're a lawyer, or if you're a judge, or if you're a hockey player, or if you've had teaching in some fashion, whether you left school when you were in grade 8 and you've now become one of the world's best authors or whatever, but there was someone there along the way to guide you as best as they could at that time.
Mhm.
And now we have so many more resources. We have so many more opportunities for advancement in our schools. And yet right now, that's part of the difficulty that, Anna mentioned in terms of just not that there's so much that all of us are carrying. And we're trying our best to manage to, throw all those balls up in the air and hope that none of them fall because they're all made of glass. And, and so are our kids and our family. And, and many of us, depending on what your age is, we might have aging parents now that are also in the scene, or we have special needs children that require a little extra attention or so on. And so all of those things are now blended into our daily life, and we're trying to manage as best as we can. So, to go back to what Dina asked before, I mean, if you look at the complexity of a classroom, you have students who come from different places and spaces in the world who might not have had formal education. You've got several of them that have ADHD. That's an entity all by itself. Then you have, a couple of kids who might have a behavior code, for lack of a better example at the moment, but, because they can get coded in order for them to be able to get extra support.
Yeah.
Not everybody, however, because it happens to be with the severity of it, which is also another whole another whole topic. When I become Minister of Education, I'll be able to change some of that.
You're here.
When we're looking at that. So then we have kids who have had struggles in some subject areas, maybe one or two. And so they're behind a year or two or three, and they're in that class too. And then you've got a couple of high flyers who, can do more, but you don't want to give them more because they're good at it, but you want to enhance. You want to broaden the breadth of what they know rather than stacking more and more on them. And then there are kids who, need some help in terms of being able to advocate for themselves, and they're shy and they're nervous or they're anxious or and lots of this comes from where they come from. So if the parents are anxious, that shows up on them. Maybe they're trying their best not to be, but that anxiety or that depression or that, any of those things are part of the complexity in a classroom. And, if they haven't eaten and if their home life is poor, and sometimes we don't know about it because sometimes you'll get kids in class who, they're the bright shining star and they'll do anything and they're capable of keeping themselves and they're capable of keeping themselves together. And then you sometimes find out that their home life is abysmal, or that they had to sleep on the floor, or they have 5 or 6 other kids in their family that they're the eldest and they're managing that. Mm-hmm. And they're sleeping in rooms and they've got babies crying in the night or any number of things. And then you throw in social media. And that's a whole other topic we can talk about on another day.
I want to dive in a little bit and explore your experience with homeschooling, Anna.
Yeah.
Well, it's like anything. When you first start, you're overwhelmed. I didn't know where to start. I was overwhelmed with just the feeling of having to be with this little human 100% of my time, which I love my children. Don't get me wrong, but there becomes a point where you start to lean on other people to help with that responsibility, right? Where you send them to school so they can learn things that maybe I won't know or that I don't gravitate towards. I'm not somebody who likes a lot of crafty things, but Sophia does. And so I struggle with a lot of the anxieties of like, am I giving her enough? Am I doing it good enough? Like all of those sorts of things as a parent. But what I've realized is that I still don't have to do it all. There's lots of resources out there. And as long as I'm willing to have the conversation, we all continue to grow, right? I found resources online. I mean, with social media and stuff, you can connect with other parents. There's podding. There's There's also like, part-time schooling. There's, you can still go through the CBE with homeschooling, and it's teacher-led. You can parent lead. There's so many options nowadays. I think it's one of those things that you really need to find what works for you. And for us in this moment, this works for us. But we're also learning through the lens of like health and wellness with a whole focus on safety this year. And that means personal safety, emotional safety, letting down our boundaries a little bit, not boundaries, but the barriers that we have, because for so many years, realizing that, not realizing, what I realized with Sophia was that I don't think she felt heard in a lot of the situations that she was in. And so she was often maybe brushed off, or just not feeling heard. She didn't feel safe in those environments. It was really overstimulating. She was dysregulating fairly frequently, which was also impacting her relationships with other students in the classroom. So often burning things to the ground. I mean, who isn't going to be scared of you, right? And so she never got invited to birthday parties. Just a lot of social things happened on the back end of things. And then the bullying started. And then we got into a cycle of, I don't want to be here anymore. And then it got to the point of, I'm taking my life. And she had a plan. At 11 years old, my daughter had a plan to take her life. And that's scary as a parent to navigate that. But when I started reaching out and getting her resources, they were all saying, it's not fair what she's gone through, but she also still has to have this responsibility to keep going, right? And so encouraging her and providing the safety and resources for her. So as a natural advocate, as a social worker in my past life, previous careers, I started just looking and researching and kind of just shooting in the dark at whatever would work. I would try things, it wouldn't work. I would try something else that stuck today. Maybe it won't stick tomorrow, but we're going to roll with it until it doesn't stick anymore. And then we start to change. So just looking for things outside the box too, right? So Sophie had never read a book in her life from front to back. And within 10 weeks of her being out of the school system, her nervous system regulated enough for her to sit and read. And she had read 10 books. And so a huge change in her, the way that she holds herself now, just being able to have that confidence and know that she's being supported. She still has the odd outbursts where it's, I'm not getting what I need. You suck. You're the worst mom ever. And that stuff is really hard. But I think, all parents kind of go through that, and you have to have a little bit of thick skin to it as well. But ultimately, all of our decisions have been made based on the best interest of Sophia and our other kids, right? So we all talked about this as a family. If this is going to happen, we know that the other three might have some buyer's remorse of having to go to school every day, or the expectations of what it might look like because Sophie's going out and doing these things, or having different environments to work in. So when we first started, it was literally focused on getting her regulated every day. So we would have some sort of river time. We would go out to the parks. We would move our body, and we honored that. And so for the first little while, it was just about getting comfortable with herself. And then we started to bank on things. We started to add in reading, and we started to add in writing, and then math. And you know what? A kid that never loved math is actually sitting down and doing it in her own time. I give her an agenda every day. This is what needs to be done, some boundaries, and it's getting done. And I don't know if she will continue on or if we'll continue on like this, but it's working for us right now. And I know that there's always options, but to have that openness and the conversations with people around me. I love having tons of educators in my network because I can bank those conversations, right? Like I can ask, what should I do? What do you think? And so it's really important to get out of that isolation, because it can become very isolating very quickly and very overwhelming because there are so many resources. When I first started looking, I was like, whoa, there's this and that. And like, we could take a cooking class and we could go over here and we could do that. And I was looking at the schedule once I put down all the ideas that Sophia and I had, and I was like, we would be going 24/7 if we wanted to do all of those ideas, right? But keeping in mind that, there's got to be balance to everything too. So the work gets done. We start in the mornings. That's what our day looks like. I let her sleep in a little bit. And now with the teacher strike, I mean, my kids like to stay up a little later. So we just shifted our day a little bit. And so, but in the morning we get up, we have breakfast, because nobody works without breakfast in their tummy. And we take meds and we exercise a little bit, and then we get to book work. And so they get to choose on their list what they're doing. But I set that out for them. And so there's some great resources out there to use and to follow. And I just change as I go. I also used a little bit of AI to help me with some of the brainstorming stuff. But yeah, there's lots of resources out there. And I shouldn't say everybody can do it, because it's not for everybody. I'm just one of those people that is willing to put in the work. And I'm blessed to have the flexibility. Not everybody has that, right? And I do recognize that. So
yeah.
Any other thoughts you'd like to share about education in general, Elizabeth?
That's
in 3 minutes.
And go.
I think it's important, and Anna talked about this before about Sophia, is to continue to have those conversations.
Oh yeah.
Because that's the piece that's going to help build whatever's going on in your family. Because I'm sure that you've had, Anna, you've had many conversations with the rest of your family in order to say, okay, well, this is the situation and this is how it exists with Sophia, and we're helping to support you in whatever grade you're in, whatever, challenges or opportunities or exciting things that are happening. So we'll continue to support that. And I think it really is about being curiously engaged and about sitting down and saying, hey, I haven't seen you in a couple of days, or I know you've been really busy. Tell me about what's going on. So that way, it's not because you have all the answers, but it's that opportunity to really, truly listen. And I have 5 strategies of dedicated listening that I share with parents to say, these are part of it is about intentional time. You need to be able to schedule time with each of your children. And that's a date or whatever you want to make it, right? To make it exciting and make it different. It doesn't matter whether you're just walking down the street together, or you're playing, you're shooting hoops, or, you're playing hockey on the street, or whatever. It doesn't matter. It really is about that connection, because they need it too. And they're not willing to ask you because they don't know how.
I remember a conversation that comes to mind, Elizabeth, with my daughter, and our dishwasher had broke down and I didn't want it fixed. And she's like, why don't we fix it? And I said, because then we get to wash dishes together. And I realized that, we talk about how going for a drive, like just going for a drive, and that parallel talking when you don't, it's not forced to be face to face. And washing dishes was kind of the same, right? And we would talk, and I would hear even more about their day.
And I'm like you, Dina. I kind of think outside the box too, of like what would get us in the uncomfortable, because we know people grow in the uncomfortable, through the uncomfortable. And so with my kids, I have gotten into their spaces, and not in a disrespectful way, but like when they're feeling things. Mia, for instance, was a little bit upset about an event that had happened or whatever, and she was kind of hunched over on the floor, crying a little bit. And I noticed one of the kids said, oh, Mia's crying downstairs. And I just went down and I sat right beside her. I didn't say anything. And yet over time, doing that over and over, she's then like, Mom, I'm really sad about this. And I'm like, yeah, buddy, like those are really normal feelings. And I shared an experience about when I was a kid and when I felt that same thing, right? Like it's just those taking the time and being intentional with our kids is really important. And I just really appreciate the conversations that come out of that. And honestly, for myself, when my daughter started baseball, it was the car rides, that parallel talk that Dina talked about. I've also connected them with resources where Jen would meet with Mia and they baked cookies or took the dog for a walk or whatever. And that was therapy through interaction, right? Like there's so much that can happen by just being there in their space, respectfully, not intruding in her room. I wasn't intruding. I mean, I knock and I make sure that it's okay to be there. But yeah, it's getting curious and being respectful with that conversation. I really respect my kids. I really want them to be successful in life, and I want to give them the space and the growth. But I also know that we learn these skills along the way. We don't always have them when we need them. And sometimes we need those reminders as kids. And so I remember as a teenager myself, like there was lots of times where I just felt so lonely. And sometimes just having someone there to say, hey, are you okay? That was really what I needed. Or even just a hug, no words exchanged at all, but we know that is there, right? I'm really encouraged about how many parents do take that time. I'm really worried though with this whole strike that there's a lot of kids that are being left to their own devices or on social media, which is very isolating. And so my heart is really heavy. And I've told Dina this over some messages. It was just some of the anxieties that I'm having right now. And my kids are seeing this too. Is, Mom, are you okay? And I'm like, I'm okay. I just have a lot of deep feelings about what's going on right now. Right. And that's okay. We're going to get through this. We all will. But yeah, my heart is a little heavy for the educators and what's going on in our province right now. So.
And I think that transparency is good with our children. That's part of those conversations, is letting them know that you don't have it all figured out. You aren't perfect, and you don't expect them to be, but let's figure this out together.
Well, and when they see that too, they see that role modeling, then they know they have an opportunity then to be able to use those skills as they have relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And, and the acknowledgement and the vulnerability piece about being able to say, I don't know it all. Or when you were talking about the dishwasher, it's part of a piece that I talk about with parents when I say, you yell at your kid because, they put the mug right on top of the dishwasher. Why didn't they put it in the dishwasher? And that's when you can say, you know what, it makes me really angry or upset when I keep having to yell at you. And I bet that you also feel angry or upset or frustrated or so on. So how can we make this different?
Yeah.
And that's that invitation back into conversation.
Yeah.
I like that.
Absolutely.
That's a great place to wrap up.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Positive note.
I do agree on the whole find something when you're either the car ride or doing the dishes or do some baking or something that that the child loves to do. It can even be video gaming, just sitting there and you're both focused on a video game, but you're chatting without realizing what you're talking about. You know what I mean? It's in depth without being in depth. So I love that because then it just opens them right up and you're having fun with them. And it's like, yeah, well, that was a really good game, and high-fiving each other, but yet you're getting intel on your child. Like, oh, how's it going? Oh yeah, you want to shoot that guy down? Like, this is like the guy at school that's always bucking you. Like, okay, let's go, let's get him, but it's opening those doors, and then it's a safe space to be able to kind of laugh and discuss without being judged in either type of a way. So that's beautiful. Thank you, Elizabeth, for coming on and sharing your experience and how we can better, the whole situation. Like, there's just little tiny things we can be doing every single day as well, we just don't even think about. And it's just something simple as just communication. Mm-hmm. So that's really super important. Anna, thank you for coming on and sharing your homeschooling experience with us and some little resources that we may overlook. Something simple as just a Facebook group that you can reach out to and find those resources and talk to other parents that are doing homeschooling. It may or may not be for everyone. It might just be, something people have to do right now because of the strike. Who knows? But, good luck to everyone out there. If you have any questions, I'm sure there's, again, lots of resources out there. Dina, thank you for getting Elizabeth and getting Anna and having them come on today. Who's got the doggo going on?
They're like, time to go for a walk.
Yeah, they say
Thank you,
walk.
everyone, for joining us. And
Yeah.
be sure and drop your comments and suggestions in the comments area under the video. And we look forward to hearing from you.
Absolutely. We'll see you guys in a couple of weeks when the next shift happens. Until then, keep shifting on, everyone. Have a great day.
Over and
Bye.
out. I hope you found that conversation insightful, encouraging, and also a reminder to all of us that what we see isn't always as it appears. People are going through a lot of things in their lives, and we would want that compassion shared to us, and that is something that we can offer to others without judgment. Instead, be curious and reach out, reach in, figure out a way that you can make someone's day a little better, and it might just start with a smile. I thank you very much for spending your time with me here today, and encourage you to please subscribe to the podcast, follow us on social media, check out our events. We have lots of ways that we can help you or someone that you love. Share this with a friend if there's someone that you know could benefit from this. And hey, keep smiling that beautiful smile, because the world really does need your sunshine. It means a lot that you spend this time with us and meet our experts and professionals who can help you through whatever life changes you're facing. Please refer to our terms of service available on our website, lifechangesmag.com. The link is in the show notes. Our disclaimer: Divorce Magazine Canada, Life Changes Magazine and channel, and divorce resource groups are intended to educate and provide quality, credible resource information. The contents should not be used as factual until consultation with the appropriate professionals for any guidance. Divorce Magazine Canada, Life Changes Magazine, and Life Changes channel, as well as the divorce resource groups, do not constitute endorsements for, nor liability for any claims made in the presenting of this information.